Good evening. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends. And today I have a wonderful panel. You guys have met these guys before. It's very easy for me to get them, and I needed to get them. I have Jeanne, of course, she's a staple. So she has she's here anyway. I have Krueger, who is really great. And I have Pastor Billy, who has been here off and on for almost a year now, or over a year, Pastor Billy.
Yes, since last February.
That's the February of the president's prayer breakfast.
Yeah. February 2020.
And I haven't seen Rehan since. He's stuck over there. Anyway, we are talking about mindset, renewal, and what was the whole title?
Accepting your new mindset.
And I have a story about it today that I'm going to tell, and then I'll do my sharing out that I do. I've had a pretty crazy mindset in the past few days. Things have been very rough and nothing was going my way. And all of a sudden, and I've been watching a lot of Abraham Hicks. But last night, some things happened, and I decided I cannot stay in this negative mindset. And in fact, I did a long interview on Clubhouse, and I saw my mindset change, but it wasn't as deliberate as I would have wanted it, as I wanted to be from this moment forward. And I went from being very yucky to being very positive, but not realizing that I created that. And in creating that, things change. Well, during all this time, and especially right before the interview, my website decided not to work. The server wasn't working. I spent 2 hours with GoDaddy and we got nowhere. Went back to GoDaddy after the interview. Again, another 2 hours. Most of it again was on hold. Couldn't get anywhere. And the guy said, well, see if it's working in the morning. Guess what, people? I changed my mindset and I said, hey, it'll work in the morning. And before going to bed. Right before coming to the show. And Jeanne, I don't think I told you that story because I was so frustrated. The website is working again. And we can go forward. So I am extremely excited. I'm realizing our words create our world. And if we want a positive world, we need to have a positive mindset or a positive thoughts going through our mind, because that's what creates our world. Our own mind creates our world. With that, Jeanne, you know what I need to do.
Okay. Well, I want to do a follow-up to your story. Something that I learned, and probably Pastor Billy, you've learned it as well. When you're getting ready to do a talk on anything, especially if it's going to be on growth and mindset or something you need to learn deep down in your heart, the universe has a way of making you experience it. So you're talking about, in the last couple of days, we've been talking about accepting your new mindset, and you went through, it sounds like, very dramatic illustration of what that's going to take. So thank you for sharing that, Carla. that was very, it's actually very vulnerable of you to share that. It kind of leads me to the first of the two quotes that I picked for today. One is from Shunryu Suzuki, who's a Japanese business leader. What he said was, without accepting the fact that everything changes, we cannot find perfect composure. But unfortunately, although it is true, it is difficult for us to accept it because we cannot accept the truth of transience that we suffer. In other words, everything is changing. But I want to follow that with a great American philosopher known as Barack Obama, who famously said, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And I thought that was important because the idea of changing mindset, which is something we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, is important. But accepting it and taking the responsibility of your own mindset is, I think, what we talk about when we talk about accepting. And so I thought those two quotes together really paint an interesting picture. I don't want to say it's hard work, but I will say it is work because change has to occur for us to be accepting. I'm going to go ahead.
Add something to that. It's been a journey for me. It didn't happen overnight. It has been going on almost 2 years now. I had videos that I used to do every day for 50 some days called Mindset Change. And I want to change my mindset. And every day I came on for 5-10 minutes and I spoke about how my mindset had changed for the day. And then I came to a point and it seemed to be stopping and I stopped doing the videos. It doesn't happen overnight because we've been told so much negativity and we've put that into our lives. It takes time to get here. You don't make that decision and poof, like magic, it happens. But poof, like magic, it happens every day as we begin thinking in a different manner. Okay, Jeannie, I'm sorry No, I'm not sorry. I just felt that needed to be added.
Well, I think change and acceptance are a journey. And you've been on a long journey and a little respite never hurt. So, Pastor Billy, you've been on a bit of a journey of a different kind, but how does this resonate with you?
Yeah, I love journeys. And I wish that everybody that's viewing this, we hope that they are on their journey. And I've probably changed careers about 5 or 6 times in my young life. And every time the change came and I accepted it, it was really revolutionary. I mean, for me, after 5 years working as a headhunter for a Wall Street company, I didn't manage anybody's money, but I was looking for and recruiting, headhunting, talent scouting brokers. And I did that because I was making good money and I had to put 5 kids through college. But at the end of that time, I knew that I needed to have a change. And so I basically went to my bride of, at that time, this is now 14 years ago. And I said, hey, I believe that God is calling me to travel the world to help widows and orphans. And so I jumped from, as I like to say, I jumped from one career to another, and I jumped out of the airplane without a parachute. And I let Jesus Messiah be my parachute, if I could say that. Again, that's my worldview. So, and I've been plummeting ever since, but I haven't hit the ground yet. So, so it's great just to live by faith. And I tell people all the time, you know, we've got to live by faith. We've got to live by faith. And so when you're ready, those of you that are listening and viewing, when you're ready to make a positive change, just go ahead and do it and let God do the rest. And that's what I've been doing these last 14 years. And I'm now working in 17 countries. So it's the 5th career change I've had in my 69 years of life. I should say 50 years of being in the workforce. And it's always exciting. It's always exciting to go to what I call, and I'll conclude with this, to go to the next level. And I think if we're going to talk about acceptance and change, we also have to use the word personal growth. And, you know, when we grow in a personal way, we're also affecting those around us, our loved ones, our colleagues, our friends, our family. And it's always a good thing when you can affect people with your own personal growth, and then it encourages them to grow as well. So thanks for asking, Jeanne.
Yeah, there's an old saying that all boats rise in the tide. And I know I use that quite a bit when I'm working with groups of people, and somebody makes a suggestion that, and somebody will respond with something that's a little bit more competitive, and I'll say, remember, all boats rise in the new tide, you know, because as we make changes, everybody around us makes changes. We affect that, they affect us. It's interesting.
The beautiful thing about life is that every single thing does that. Biomimicry proves that. They've proven it with the idea of people meditating, and there's less violence. And when there's less violence, what happens? Well, people are healthier, they're happier, we produce better and so on in regard to being more successful. But to be able to break up habits, and to be able to break up habits, it's just like what I just did. I corrected this but because it stops things. And when we use language that is empowering and positive and effective, instead of trying and working at it, we're not trying and working at anything. We are doing it.
Yes.
We may not do it every moment when we think, oh, yes, I forgot this. Well, when you think about I forgot this, then you're remembering to forget. So when we say, I remember, see, again, this is our socialization. And when we socialize with the way we've been trained, and this is the problem with our education system, it's a hierarchy rather than a collaboration. And when we work together, we can achieve incredible things. I'll give you an example. I was on the Los Angeles Unified School District's advisory board, and the head of it had us over on the weekend. He gave us 3 things. He put us into teams of 4 people. He gave us 3 things: a hammer, a foot-long string, and a ruler, a 1-foot-long ruler. He said, okay, now you can attach this to this table, this ruler. The only thing of the ruler that can be on the table is 1 inch of the ruler. Everything else, those 3 things, has to hang from the table. So imagine if this is the table, I only have just a little bit of the ruler there. And then there's a string that's holding attached to the ruler somehow, and a hammer is attached to that. How do you do it? It took us 3 hours. 3 hours. He did not tell us how to do this. He didn't say, no, you're doing it wrong. He didn't say, try this. It was an investigation. It was an exploration. And that's what life is. Everywhere we walk, you can talk to the plants. You can do all kinds of things. To give you another example of change, This is the topic for today. How do we change our bad habits or these ideas about the words that we use? As soon as we're conscious of a bad habit, we can switch it. So I had a student at one time. He sucked his thumb. He's 16 years old, sucking his thumb. And after class, I pulled him aside. I says, "Do you want to stop sucking your thumb?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, every time I see you start to go like this, I'm going to go like this. Just cross the hands like this. And you can do this, because what it does, this physical movement like this, it cuts the pattern of energy of that ingrained thought." This is the image that I gave him. And then I said, "Look, take your hand, left hand facing you, right hand against it, and go like this, saying the opposite of what you have been doing." So I always, let's say, if you have a bad habit, like I always forget, then you say, "Why do I always remember?" Or "I always remember." You change that word, you switch it like this, and you've changed the word pattern. And then you take your right hand at the base of your torso, at the foot of, right down between your legs, and you raise it straight up the center of your body, up over your head and out to the side like a big D. But you're saying at that time, you say, "Thank you, I love you." Now, what are you thanking? You're thanking God or that inspiration that reminded you, you are taking control of your life. You are creating the new habit, the better habit. Like Carla was saying about yesterday was okay, but this is even better, and tomorrow's going to be even better. That's what we're doing. We're creating a better life. And when you look at history has had so much more violence throughout time than is present today. We think it's horrible, but there is actually less and less violence and less other issues than we are led to know, because fear and separation and all that sells. It gets your attention. Oh, you got to worry about this. Oh, watch out for that. There might be an earthquake in California. Oh, there's plenty of fires. There might be a fire today because there's wind here. There is wind here. You should see my zapotes. So many of these fruits fell down because of the wind. But we're just living now, and we're doing what we can to prevent any fires or do the things that we can do, but we don't have to worry. We live in the moment. And that's what meditation offers us, is living in the moment. And Pastor Billy knows meditation is a key factor in Christianity, because Jesus said, I think it was Jesus. Anyway, be still.
Go ahead with Jesus. That's fine.
Okay. As far as I know, he said, "Be still and know that I am God."
Yeah.
So what is being still? Quieting the mind. And then what does it allow you to do? You might become somebody like a guy, as they say, praise be his name, Allah. I mean, not Allah, but I mean, Muhammad. Muhammad was listening for that inspiration. He wanted to tune in. He wanted to experience God, which is called Allah in Arabic. And that's when he got that inspiration. Not when he's thinking about his wife or his children or his work or his this, that, or the other thing. Am I going to make it in time? He wasn't doing that. So that's why I teach a peacemaker meditation too, because it brings us peace of mind. And if there's peace everywhere in the world and we don't have peace of mind, we're in hell. So I've spoken way too much, not way too much, excuse me. It's whoever it may be.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, sometimes when a change in thinking needs to happen, we get so caught up in it that there isn't someone to remind me, hey, so what kind of thing can I use to remind myself, hey, I need to change my thinking? And now, not in 10 minutes.
That's a great, great question. So some people use tools. My wife will make a mark in a particular part of her body that, and just a little mark, doesn't say anything, it's just a little mark. And then she'll look at it maybe sometime in the day. Oh, that's what it is. And she thinks of what she had made the mark for. Or some people, to be able to remember God, will wear a mala. They'll wear this and they'll do their mantra, Om Mane Padme Hum if you're Buddhist, or Om Namah Shivaya if you're Hindu, or Allahu Akbar if you're Muslim, or whatever it might be. They use a tool. Or you can even get, sometimes buddy systems are good too. That you have to have somebody around, like I was to this student of mine. So you can create your own tools. I'm going to put in the chat the information about switching, if you'd like. And if people want to get in touch with me about this practice of changing these negative habits, you can connect with me on successsystemsinternational.net or email me, and I will give you that simple practice. It is written in the book called Winning Ways for Living, which is a book in 3 weeks. It got to be a bestseller on Amazon in 3 weeks from posting.
Do me a favor.
Okay.
And please put it in the Facebook chat, that information you put it in the Zoom chat.
Okay, I'll do that.
No one else will see it but the people in the room. But in the Facebook chat, everyone will see it.
Beautiful.
I think it's such very, very important information. I don't understand, and you do this all the time, and these real long things, you have them already together to share.
I do. It's in my notes. So otherwise it would be difficult to be able to do this as I'm talking or listening to somebody else talk and so on. So I've learned to be a little bit more user-friendly for these kind of things.
Okay, thank you, because I've been trying to figure that out for weeks now. And I'm like, how did he get that done? He's been writing, he's been speaking the whole time. But
well,
please put
those
it
words,
in the Facebook chat.
Those words that are so important, these empowering communications. I have an article about that also. I can't post it on this right now because of time limitations, but it's all in this book that I have, Winning Ways for Living. And it's really cheap to be able to have it in digital. I made it cheap for anybody in the world to have it, because when I lived in India, I lived in the villages in India for 3 years. Excuse me, 2 years. I've been there a number of times after, but people are so poor there that they couldn't afford a regular book, much less just about anything else. And the more people that get this and the more people that share it, don't ever let a book sit on your shelf. Lend it, get somebody to be inspired, so we uplift our brothers and sisters, our neighbors. This is another key factor in life. Who's talking with their neighbors now? Oh my goodness, he's a Trumper, or he's a Bernie kind of person, or this person's like that, or look at that beard. Oh my God, he must be old. And, talking to old people, forget it. Well, when we get to talk with young people, we get enlivened and they get to be able to have some of the craziness that we got to live through or whatever. But there's this beautiful dialogue, no matter who we communicate with. I communicate with hummingbirds. They teach me a lot. They gave me this inspiration to be able to have on 11/11 at 11 a.m., all over the world, people can meditate for 1 minute or 60 minutes for 1 hour, or all day if they want, but meditate or pray, whichever is your volition, at that 11/11. If people do it for a whole hour, then all the way around the world, there's somebody meditating for that hour, and it's sort of like hands off, like a relay around the world. So peace is having a wave around the world. And guess what meditation does? There's almost 50% less suicides, accidents, and violence when 1% of the population meditates. Imagine that. Why is it that we don't focus on that? When I was teaching at Stockholm University, I gave a program to the Swedish prison wardens and priests, because they have priests in every prison. I taught them how to meditate and why it was beneficial for the people inside, so that they changed inside while they were inside, using their time wisely to get inspiration about how I can live a better life. The old way didn't work. So this is how we get to be able to. Swedish prisons have 20% recidivism rate. That means 20% of the people return to prison in Sweden. We have the opposite. We have 80%. Why? We punish them. We don't try to change them. We don't try to make them better. Got you, you did something wrong. Well, that's the Old Testament, an eye for an eye kind of thing. Jesus was talking about love.
One of the things about accepting the mindset change that we've been talking about is that things do get chaotic before we get that point of exception. So as you were teaching people to meditate, there might have been something going on that people would get confused by. Like I always equate it to throwing the pebble into the pond. You have a nice calm pond and you take a pebble, a rock basically, and you throw it and it messes up the silt, and it all gets churned and it gets kind of muddy looking. And then as we start to meditate and let it go, we give it time, it settles, but it's different. It does not settle the same way. In the times we've been in, Carla, it's like Jupiter's been in retrograde for the last 6 years, and we've been in a lot of chaotic, different changes, but each individual is settling differently. And I like what you said about the meditation in the prisons, Kurt, because changing from the inner core is not easy. And I think it's easier to go backward when you start to make a change and you get uncomfortable. It's easier to go back to your comfort zone, and finding those tools that allow you to settle into a new comfort zone, is probably key to allowing that acceptance. Understanding that change. I think it was Heracles said that the only constant is change. Understanding that everything's always changing, but that we have a choice to master that change or to be mastered by that change. And as we've been talking about mindset and, flipping on the positivity switch, if you will, understanding from a bigger picture, whatever the change in your mindset is, we do need to go through that cloudy, murky time as things get stirred up. But we do need to take a breath and let them settle, because we don't have that capability to force change on other people. All we can do is illustrate what we're going through and how it affects us. And hopefully they'll come along for the ride. When I changed my comfort zone, it caused a lot of ripple effects in my family. When I started saying things like, "I'm sorry, you really can't talk to me that way," to people who were talking down and being really derogatory is the word that comes to mind, but hurtful. When I finally had the ability to say, you can't talk to me that way, that caused ripple effects that for the moment with my family was, catastrophic to them. But we came through it all because all of us changed, and we're a much happier family that way, and I look at kids when they start to have altercations, when they get to a certain age and they start to struggle over who's in charge, who's the most important, who's the most popular. And I watch them, and they fall into that hierarchical kind of grouping that happens with every group, that, no matter if you're kids or not, each time it's catastrophic. The drama level is a little different depending on your age, but it's catastrophic because it's changing. But when it settles down, everybody takes that big collective sigh of relief. That's when the change is ready to be accepted. But you have to go through that level of acceptance, otherwise you fall backwards. And that would be the point that I'd want to make, is keep moving forward. Keep taking one step, because then the change isn't so catastrophic. It's an ongoing process. So I jokingly say I have a PhD in weight loss, because I've been on weight loss programs for most of my adult life. I think University of Phoenix should give me an honorary PhD for that. But that said, one of the most important aspects that I learned was, don't beat yourself up when you fall off the wagon. Say to yourself, I fell off the wagon, time to get back on. And that's an important part of this accepting mindset. We're going to slide backwards and we're going to go, look at that. I didn't quite like it the way I used to. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
Let's move forward.
That's the 12-step program. It's the 12-step program, and it's working in that when we work it. And again, it's just, we work at each moment and do what we can with it. And that's the value also of getting teams and buddy systems.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to keep on keeping on because of that. And sitting with Carla every day or whatever, and hearing inspirations from people helps us be able to get some other tools to use.
Yes.
Now, the book Winning Ways for Living has tons of them, because it deals with your body, mind, spirit, and emotions. How do you do the Pythagorean practice? That sets up your next day for incredible things to happen. And it makes it so you don't even have to work at it. How? Well, Pythagoras was one of the wizards of history. He was not only a mathematician, a genius at that, but he was also an incredible philosopher. He had his students do a particular practice every night before they went to sleep, just before they went to sleep. And in doing it, they planned their next day. They saw their next day happening and when it was supposed to happen and so on. And it more likely happened. What happened in the night? It gestated all the things. It was like making it come true. It was like you knew it was going to happen. You knew that at this time I'm doing that. So you flowed into it. It's almost like inside your mind, you had already seen it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, you spoke it into existence.
Yes.
And, I do that as a pastor as well. And, since we're talking about change and acceptance, I don't know who said this quote, but I like it. Standing still is the first step backwards. So we never want to stand still, right? And I try to memorize a phrase every day. So that's my phrase for today. Standing still is the first step backwards. And the other item, and I'm glad you mentioned the 12 steps program. One of the expressions that is used in the 12-step program, whether it's AA or CA or OA or one of the A's, anonymous, for those for those of you not familiar that are viewing, AA is Alcoholics Anonymous. There's also Overeaters Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, etc. And it's a 12-step program to help you change. But, they say one day at a time, one day at a time. Well, I needed more than that. So I don't talk about ODAT, one day at a time, ODAAT. I talk about OMAT, one moment at a time, because I always want to be a better person in the next moment than I am right now. And hopefully at the end of this MindPlore, I'm going to be a better person at the end than I was at the beginning. I'm going to love my family better. I'm going to be a better pastor. I'm going to be a better follower of Jesus Messiah. And then I'm going to say something that's pretty radical. But the word radical is really a great word. It's from the Latin word radix, radix, which means getting to the root. And we've all eaten a radish, which is a root. And so when you talk about doing something radical related to change and acceptance, it's getting to the root. And every year, what I do for the last several years, I go on a 40-day water-only fast. That's fasting, no food, no supplements, no juice, no juicing, just plain water with some electrolytes. So I am now in day 4 of my 40-day water-only fast. And I do that for physical reasons, because when you fast, it reboots your immune system, which my family says, hey, Pastor Billy, how come you never get sick? I said, well, because I normally fast 3 days a week. But the discipline of fasting helps me not only reboot my physical life, but also my spiritual life, my emotional life, which was just mentioned. And imagine that, going 40 days with nothing to eat. And I try to do that every year. And it really helps me to refocus my entire life. Where should my priorities be? What do I need to change? And am I willing to accept that change? So you can pray for me that I move forward on this 40-day water-only fast. It's going to be exciting to see what's going to happen by the end of November. So those are my quick thoughts.
Pastor Billy, the last time you did it, Rehan did a video with you. And I remember this very clearly. Yes. And he tagged me into the video. I was actually there watching it. And he started. And when he got to day 2, he told me he was doing it. And I joined.
Great.
He stopped. I never told you. He stopped at day 3. We're not going to go into that. I went on. I kept on going. And I went on for 30 some days. I never made it to 40. And I did add fruit because I'm diabetic. So I
you have to do that, right?
I added something. But it was a great experience. And I laughed, and he said, I just can't go without food that long. And he posted something that I put on about it, because I was at day 20 or I was far into the fast. And someone wrote to him, one of his family members wrote to him and said, and it's all public. If you go back, you'll see it. Why is she fasting so long? And he said, well, we started it together and we were going to do this fast for 40 days, for 10 days. I stopped, but she continued. And I thought you did it every other year. I didn't realize that you did it every year. So I'm actually amazed to hear that now.
Yeah. There's a big key to that. One of the points of fasting is obviously to self-control and offering up this time for a higher purpose and getting it more in tune.
Exactly.
And one of the keys about fasting, I did an experiment. I was living in the countryside in New Mexico in a beautiful canyon area, totally isolated, 6 miles off the main road, on just dirt road. And I was guided to be able to be blindfold and not speak in this community that I was living in. It was like a retreat center, but I was guided to be blindfolded and not speak for a week. I had to walk with this guidance that I was given that, told me to do this, to walk over by the side of a creek from where I was staying in this bunkhouse. I had to go through an area that there was 3 by 2 feet or 4 feet size holes in the ground for putting in a foundation for this new bunkhouse that we were building. I had to walk through this area without falling in these holes of 4 feet or whatever. I then had to go to the edge of the creek. Here's an 8-foot drop onto boulders or whatever, and then the creek and so on, right? No problem. How? When we open to that spirit that is inside us, that is permeating where we live, there is nothing we cannot do. When I say that, the only picture in the book, Winning Ways for Living, is a picture of a man with one arm lifting a huge apparatus. There was a bar with weights on each side, over 7,000 pounds. He did it this high off the standard. He did it 3 out of 5 times. He was over 60 years old when he did it. His name is Rehan. You can look it up if you'd like to in the media. But the thing is, how many of us will talk to a hummingbird or talk to any animal or the tree? The trees are precursors to these things called earthquakes. They get the message before the earthquake happens.
Yeah, or a tsunami.
Science has researched that and found out this is one of our keys to tune into, to be able to prevent so much damage from people having earthquakes. The tuning in, the fasting from thinking, from seeing, from just choose something. Like some people will fast from, I did a Lent kind of a fast of no sugar. Now, if you read containers of food that have whatever food in it, 99.9% of them have sugar in it and salt, those 2 things.
Yeah.
Because they're addictive and they're needed by the body. Some of it, the salt is needed by the body to a degree. So we have much to explore in
Throw in a little,
MindPlore.
If you throw in a little fat, you've got the trifecta: sugar, salt, and fat. And,
I got plenty of fat.
Little confession, I think popcorn is a platform to get butter and salt to you. So I love popcorn. However,
it gets in my teeth.
I'm not allowed to eat popcorn anymore. So.
I understand. Yeah, it's what you're speaking about, Kurt, is kind of going backwards a little bit and allowing ourselves to actually be in the world, not be on the world. Yeah, one of the things that we can say about our current society is it's noisy. It's cacophonous. There's always activity. There's always drama. There's always emotion. There's always something. It's a loud, 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 loud world. And we don't necessarily stay in tune like our forefathers, especially in the indigenous communities, did. When they were one with the earth, when they did commune naturally with nature. And it's also a sign that we're more left brain driven than right brain driven, and allowing ourselves to meditate for even just a moment would allow us to experience the world in a different manner when we let our right brain and left brain kind of balance out, which is what I see happening when I'm meditating. All of a sudden I see color. I see color and I feel vibrations because I'm not bombarding myself with all the noise. I can go into numbers about how much we're just driven to distraction. Really quickly, just in social media, they've figured it's about 37 gigabytes of stuff thrown at us, which is like a 100,000 word Stephen King novel and 7 hours of video. That's on top of all of the stuff that we do all day. So it's a wonder that we are constantly under pressure, constantly moving, constantly going at the speed of light. We're taking a moment and letting the speed of light absorb into us when we're meditating, allowing the speed of sound to go through us, so that we can integrate a little bit more of the new thoughts, Carla, of the new positivity that you're talking about. Let it integrate into our thoughts. So when we have those 80,000 thoughts that we're not aware of go through our mind, that they become more positive versus the committee thoughts that I often call the voices in your head, the thoughts in your head, the ones that you pay attention to. Those are the committee, because there's going to be the voice of your mother saying, you need to do this, or you need, who do you think you are? Do not talk to me that way. Or my father, who would, the voice of my father always told me you could do better. So I'm always striving a little bit more, even though I took it differently when I was a kid. But those voices are there. The who do you think you are? The things that we learned as children are still in there, and we need to process them. And you can't process them with all this other noise going on. So as we start to sit quietly and allow the right brain and left brain to sort of merge, and we let the sound, the values of the sound go through us, and the energy kind of flow through, which to many people, they don't quite understand. But I have a little trick. I have people kind of shake around and do the hokey pokey. And then I say, you feel that tingling? You feel that? That's energy. And that's flowing through you. And we get to change it. Whenever things are chaotic, shake yourself up and change that energy, it took me a while to accept that myself, so sitting quietly, allowing the change to settle in is an important part of accepting the new mindset that we want to set for ourselves. And that can be very freeing, but it also takes some time. Sitting quietly sometimes is the hardest thing to do because it takes time, and we're always telling ourselves we don't have time, but we have time. And believe me, I often think about this when I get a cold or get slammed with something like the flu, and we're not even going to go into anything more, but periodically something will happen. I'll go, okay, universe, obviously I need to slow down, because I'm not listening, and things kind of work themselves out. I got a headache the other day. Now I can blame the gale force winds that we've had and all the stuff that's been mixed up in the air, because it was a sinus headache. But it also was a moment where I said to myself, all right, take the time, slow down, see what's really going on. And when we want to make changes, we do need to take that time. We need, even if it's 5 minutes, we need to take that time for ourselves. Pastor Billy, you were going to say something?
Yeah. I wanted to go back. We were talking about fasting and meditating. I like to use the word praying. And Kurt had mentioned that verse, and it's Psalm 46 and verse 10. And it says, be still and know that I am God. And it was written by the psalmist David. I mean, if you want to talk about meditation and prayer, David in antiquity was the chief. You know, here he is, king of Israel, and he's meditating upon God. He's being still. He's meditating upon the goodness of God, the mercy of God, the love of God. And that's what I love to do during times of fasting. I fast 3 days a week anyway, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And I meditate, I just think through, and I obviously, and Kurt, you mentioned this as well, about getting a greater connection with God. And certainly as a pastor, and I'm being pulled every day from many different people. So people say, well, how do I restore myself? How do I rejuvenate myself? And it's through prayer and fasting. And fasting 40 days, you really, I'm not going to get weird about this, but you really enter into that spiritual dimension. You're not sleeping a lot because your body is not focused with your blood and your gut digesting the food. So when you fast for this long period of time, you're really alert, and you move into the spiritual dimension, which is amazing. So, and I'll just conclude with saying that when I pray and meditate and fast during these long periods, water only fasting, it helps me to grow closer in my walk with Jesus Messiah, which allows me to be filled up so then I can pour out love, grace, and mercy on other people.
Excellent. This is such a beautiful expression of becoming human. We are children of Allah, of God. We are children of the divine, of creation. As children of God, the force is with us when we open to the force. It's like you can see on some of the people that are doing all this research on certain powers, like these Tai Chi artists. I used to teach students, because I taught self-defense for teachers and for students, from middle school on up to teachers that teach the subject, and you can easily break boards. You can easily do things that are, quote, not able to do. But we are able to do just about anything with that openness to do it. If a person sees a child underneath a car, some people will go, ah, and scream. Other people, women, have been known to not only pick up the car, hold the car with one hand and pull the child from underneath it. I was in an accident coming back from a swim workout, hour and a half swim workout with world record holders on the team. And my brother starts to do a fishtail on the freeway. And I calmly said, slow down. Now, this is my identical twin brother. He became, like I did, an All-American. He was actually a national champion in swimming. But he put his foot on the brake. Wrong thing to do. So we did a donut facing the traffic coming at us, going from the fast lane on the freeway to the guardrail, $150 of damage in the guardrail, totaled the car. When the tow truck man came and asked to be able to have us pick up the car, because he gets paid on numbers of tows, I said, sure. And I looked at my brother, and he's like this. He's in a state of shock. I picked up the car. He put the tires underneath it. We drove away. How did a 6-foot-tall, 150-pound swimmer coming back from a hard workout do that? The force was with me. Some people will call it the force. Some people will call it God, the Holy Spirit. It's the power that is available to us all when we turn to it, when we open to it. But how many of us explore that? That's why we're mind-ploring. We're going beyond the mind. This is the key to life. It's really absorbing the beauty of every single thing. When I mentioned earlier today about this hummingbird, guess what happened? You might have seen me sort of glance off like this because the hummingbird just went like that. So it was like saying, yeah, you're on the right track, bro. Keep it up. This is how spirit can work. We get to tune into it. And tuning in, the best way I know is meditation. The best practice in any language is the one that I put in the chat, is the Peacemaker Meditation, because it can be in any language. And you bend forward like this. You might have seen me sort of rocking back and forth, like as if I was in front of the Western Wall in Jerusalem. But it's peace in everything, everything with peace. Peace in everything, everything with peace. And when we do this, that gets into the mind and we can ruminate it. We can have it thought, not think about it, because it goes into the subconscious and we start to actually start figuring out, oh, I don't feel so peaceful right now. How can I be more peaceful? I can speak with you kindly instead of agitated. Get to become more aware because we become more conscious and more open with simple thing. And your muscle memory helps you peace in everything, everything with peace. As I walk up the hill each morning, it's real simple. It comes more naturally because the more it works when you work it is another 12-step program comment that they have that everybody knows about. And so it works when we work it. It works because we work it. And this is when we use words like work it, it's a struggle. We can change our vocabulary and make it playful. I have a friend, Eddie Kozel. He has something called Play Out. I brought him to do a demonstration at this middle school. And it was a ghetto school. And he has these little cards. And kids are playing with these cards and getting incredible exercise doing it. But they weren't thinking they were exercising. They were playing. And when you play, you can play all day. Be like little children. That's another good quote from one of the world scriptures. You enter the kingdom. Why? A little child is in awe of everything. This breeze is happening right now. And I see how the trees are flowing and easing with the breeze. And we can go through life as if we're flowing down the river instead of struggling. We don't have to struggle. We can tune and open to the flow of life. This is such a beautiful thing to do.
We were actually taught that in most of our elementary classes when we were children. If you recall, I'm sure you guys went through this. It was an exercise we did in physical education where we were kind of doing dance, but not, but they were teaching us to bend like the willow. You know, if hands were up and we went like this, and as kids, we're not going to understand it. But as you grow up and you think about that time, bending like the willow, that's giving with the energy that's coming and going with it so that you're letting the energy help you and you're moving forward versus standing still and fighting against it. You know, so I know when I was 8 years old, I had no knowledge that was what I was learning. But when I started to understand the forces of energy around us that are, you know, there's energy in us, there's energy around us, there's energy everywhere. But when I started to understand, I was like, oh, going with the flow makes a big difference versus fighting it, which is one of the reasons I do that, you know, do the hokey pokey and feel that energy with folks, because then they're like, oh my God, And the other one I do is have them kind of you rub your hands together so they're sensitive, and you kind of feel where the heat comes in you. And usually it's about 6 inches or so outside of your body. And you're like, that's your energy flow. When somebody steps in that within that 6 inches, I'll bet you get a little bit squidgy, kind of, ooh, somebody's too close. But that's our personal space. You know, in America, our personal space can be way out to here, but in other cultures, it's here. But you start to feel that energy, you know, and just those two things make people who've never thought about it go, oh, that's interesting. And that sets them on that change, Carla.
Yeah.
That sets them on that change. Just that awareness.
This
That gets them
thing that I'm
thinking.
doing now is actually something I picked up from Ulf Sandström. He's out of Sweden also. He's a trauma specialist. And imagine you have a little ball in your hand or a little marble, and you're making it in a sort of circular motion. And both hands are moving, not just one moving and the other still, but both hands are moving. And this helps to release stress in the body. And also moving like this or like side to side, most of us sit too long still. Now, still is fine if you're going to meditate, but you can also do this movement or side to side during some of your talks. Why? Again, it enlivens all the nerves in your body. Simple little microkinetic movements will allow this body to be able to feel more and more alive, and the energy flows better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say you've been watching me rock my granddaughter.
Yes.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we have been speaking over an hour.
Yes.
It's time to close the show, although I don't really want to. So we will be back with the same topic on Thursday. And
Great.
I look a different panel, except Jeanne will be there. And let's see what happens on Thursday, because this has been an extremely wonderful conversation. Can we wave goodbye, everyone? Bye.
Good to see. Good to see everybody. Thank you. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, guys. It was very,
clapping.
yeah, it's very enlightening. Thank you.
God bless.